My name is Mike Kuczala, and I'll just do a very short introduction by telling you this. The most important thing you need to know about me is that I come from a family of teachers. How many people are teachers in this room? Great. Wife, former second and fourth grade teacher, sister, third grade teacher, both parents, 3 grandparents. I was in the classroom for 10 years. It's just what I do. Okay, just what I do. So I'll tell you one quick story about my Aunt Kathy. And we're really short on time tonight. I'll say a quick story. It's fun. My Aunt Kathy, who's long retired, she was a first grade teacher for many, many years. And one year, the first day of first grade, halfway through the day, a young man went to get his coat. This is a true story. Because back then, everything was half-day kindergarten. And he was a morning kid. He was ready to go home. So he went to get his coat, and my Aunt Kathy went over to him and said, "Sweetie, you're in first grade now. You need to stay here for the entire day." And excuse my mouth, true story, he looked at her and he said, "Who the hell signed me up for this?" Just being honest, first grade. So I am the classroom part of this. What I'm going to do is take you through a framework that my co-author and co-course designer have created through the years. I'm going to bounce around a little bit tonight, and throughout that, I'm going to go into some reasons why it's effective from the brain's perspective. That's what I really am as a brain junkie. Love listening to Dr. Brady talk. So we're going to take you through a framework to use movement thoughtfully and purposely. And really, I'm about we have a section in there on physical fitness, but I'm less about that and more about the fact that it is pedagogically sound. It is a best practice in the classroom because from the brain's perspective, it looks and feels more like life. That learning doesn't happen from the neck up. Learning happens from the feet up. That's who we are. We get all kinds of signals from our bodies. And I'm going to start this by saying this. I'm a little bit more crazy. Let's talk about what happens when you sit for too long. I'm going to get you up soon. Oh, and by the way, clear the spaces where your feet are, okay? Because you're going to need that space to stand. So, when you sit for too long, blood pools in your butt and legs. Have you had that feeling? You know what I'm talking about. You sit, and gosh, just let me stand up. And so, as soon as you stand up, I've heard different estimates, read different estimates. I'm going to say that you get about 10% more blood flow to the brain and around the body. Okay, blood and oxygen flowing, and that's what we want as educators in the classroom. The second thing that happens is this. Tell me if this is not true. Your brain says, "Hey, you've been sitting for a while. You must be sleepy. And I'm going to make you sleepier," right? And it does. The third thing is, I know that in all of your classrooms in Alexandria public schools, your kids sit like this all day. Can't wait for the next thing you have to say. And really, it's more like this. "Oh, man, she is talking again." And they are cramping their breathing systems. So they need to move. And they need to stand. There's so many more reasons. We'll get to as many as possible. But the thing that's become the poster child, the poster children for physical activity in schools and classrooms are brain breaks. I'm sure you've all heard of them. Or brain blasts, brain energizers, brain boosts. We call them breaks because we're giving kids a break from content. We really are loading up on working memory, and that's why we use the breaks. A lot of my friends in the PE world give me a hard time. The brain's not on a break, it's on fire. I know that, I know. But so we can call it whatever you want. And physical education or the fitness movement. Those are the two pieces. I'm going to show you some others tonight. But to begin, let's go to the brain break piece, because some of you have been sitting for quite a while now, and even 10 or 15 minutes is too long. So I'd like you to stand up, please. There's one I had planned on doing with you, but if we do that particular brain break, I will have people falling down to the floor. I don't want that to happen. So find a partner. I don't care who it is, just find a partner. And if you need to step over seats to be a group of 3, that works too. All right, yeah, you can be a group of 3 if either you come down or she gets up higher. That's great. Okay, face your partner. No fall, no. I'm not doing that one. Do something else. Face your partner or get into a little group of 3. If you're with a partner, I want you to put your right palm up like this, right across from them. Right palm up. Good. If you're in a group of 3, just put it out to your side. Okay. Now take your left pointer finger and put it in the palm of the person across from you. Or if you're in a group of 3, to your left. Okay, everybody got it? You got it, good. Now when I say go, I'm going to say ready, go. I want you to simultaneously pull your finger out of your partner's palm and try to grab their finger. Let me say that one more time. When I say go, you're going to pull out your finger and grab theirs. Ready, go! Now listen. This is not your uncle's slap game. We're not crossing over. We're just pulling out and grabbing. Try it again. Palm up. Pointer finger in. Ready, go! Best of 3. Best of 3. One more time. All right, ready, go! Stay standing. I have one more to show you while you're up. One more. So we're going to do a version of rock, paper, scissors, but you don't have to play rock, paper, scissors. I said something wrong there. I want you to, you're going to, with your partner, or with your group of 3, it's all good. You take turns in the group of 3. You're going to rock, paper, scissors, and you're going to show a number. I show 2, my partner shows 3. The first person to add up the sum wins. 5, rock, paper, scissors. 7, rock, paper, scissors. 9, just go at your own pace. Ready? Go.
Shoot, I forgot I did. 6.
Multiply!
6. 25.
Okay, one more, subtract.
That was fun.
Though we are meeting basic human needs, and fun is one of those in Glasser's list, that's not really the point. The point is now that I have, at whatever it is, 5:30 in the evening, a more efficient, focused brain in front of me. That's what I'm after. You're more alert, you have a better ability to pay attention to me, and now I can go after you with content. And that's the point of a brain break, okay? And to get that blood flow around the brain and body. So that's one way to use physical activity in the classroom. And remember this, you have your kids in minutes for about how old they are. So if you're dealing with 10-year-olds, you got them for about 10 minutes if you're trying to keep their attention. Okay, beyond that, you're taking your chances. The brain is always paying attention, probably just not to you. Okay, it starts to scan its environment for threats. It's just something that we do naturally, and that means I'm going to start looking out the window. I might start getting bored. I just might start looking around for things other than what you're trying to do, unless your content is the most emotionally engaging, fantastic content these kids have ever heard. And does your school day look like that every day, all the time? No. It can, and it does, but not always. So just keep those parameters in mind. Okay. Step 2. We can help to prepare the brain to learn through certain physical movements. Prepare the brain to learn. And there's several ways to do it today. I'm going to talk about 2. So I want you to know this. that executive function skills, Dr. Brady talked about some of those, are a better predictor of academic achievement than IQ. And we can improve those skills in both children and adults through engaging neural networks that deal with attention, memory, and self-control. What recent research, and it's still ongoing, but the research, what it's telling us is this, that when we engage kids in these patterned, sequenced, coordinative, rhythmic, beat-based activity, we can engage this executive function and we can improve the skills of working memory, of cognitive flexibility, of response inhibition, of planning, all the executive function skills that precede learning. We can actually help kids do that through these specific type of exercises. And the research is really new, but it's really promising. So I'm going to take you through some very, very basic fundamental ideas to show you what I'm talking about. I'll explain to you how it can get more complex in a hurry. So if you wouldn't mind, stand up again. These are no partners. This is all you. So, coordinative, rhythmic, beat-based activities. So the first, I'm going to ask you I'll try to do this sequentially. So let's just march in place for right now. 1, 2, just right here. Good. Now, you will, as a group, I was a music teacher in a former life, and I can already hear you starting to rush. That's just what happens. So just try to keep it nice and easy. Backside of the beat like you're playing the blues. Okay, good. Now I'm going to ask you to do what I do. So I'm going to clap 4 times. All kinds of crazy stuff that helps our executive function skill. That's what the research is showing. So I just want to give you some basic, simplistic idea about that, but those are ways that we can help kids prepare their brain to learn. And they also serve as a great brain break. So keep an eye out for that research. It's coming. Okay, you can have a seat for a moment. So by some accounts, our kids are coming to school less prepared to learn than ever. And that, not all, and that is from a physical perspective, meaning they're not spinning, jumping, swinging, rotating as much as they once did before they got to school. And there's a price to pay for that, okay? And there are ways that we can enhance that in the classroom under the title of preparing the brain. And what we're trying to do with these activities is develop vestibular system. The vestibular system helps you to know where you are in space. It deals with eye tracking, so we can go from left to right on a page. It just helps to regulate emotion. And so kids need this more than ever when they get to school because they're not always getting it before they get to school. I'm going to do the activities for you. I can't ask you to do these here. That would be worse than the first thing I was going to do. So, but examples of these types of activities: we spin, we hop, we jump, and yes, sometimes we fall down and get back up. And that's okay for the brain. In fact, that's fantastic for the brain. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I'll show two of them to you. One is we call a jumping jack spin. So, and we go back the other way. Simple, I'm dizzy. Kids have much more liquid inner ear fluid than we do. As we get older, it gets more difficult, we get dizzy more quickly. Here's another example of a prepare the brain activity to help the vestibular system development. I'm going to grab my foot behind the opposite leg, and I'm going to hop and spin.
Oh my God.
Go back the other way. I got to keep it balanced. I'm going to go back. Okay, so vestibular system development. So many more of those activities that we can do with kids because they need that from a brain perspective because that vestibular system helps develop other systems in the brain and body as well. So again, tonight is just a broad overview, giving you some ideas about what you might want to think about moving forward with kids. So, okay, I need to catch my breath. Step 3 in our framework, another way to use physical activity in classrooms is to create class cohesion. It has a very specific purpose. Research tells us that when you create relationships between students and relationships between teachers and students, academic achievement rises. I'm so happy that SEL, social emotional learning, which is so critical to our existence in schools, is in the literature in a big way. As we all know, the research says kids are more anxious, they're more depressed. In fact, I heard a guy from Yale talk last year. We were presenting at the same conference. And the statistic, I was like, wow, college freshmen are seeking professional help over the last 5 years by an increase of 20% each year. That maybe the statistics are better, people are more open to getting services. I'm not sure all the reasons for that, but kids are having, it's tough to be a kid. They're ahead of where we were curricularly. They just are. There's more pressure put on them, and they have more to do, and there's phones and scheduled lives and all kinds of things. But the social emotional learning piece is critical for a classroom, for a brain to feel safe. The brain prioritizes information in 3 ways all the time. Number 1 is survival, okay, of course. Number 2 is emotion, that hopefully most kids are not coming into your rooms in a survival mode. But of course it happens. Abuse, sexual abuse, no dinner the night before, no breakfast the morning of, I'm in survival mode. I guarantee you that you'll have kids every day that come in on the emotional level. And you still can't get to learning when you're there. And do you have time to go around to every child and say, how are you doing? Let's take a few minutes to go for a walk and tell me about your day. Of course not. So I always ask teachers, what are you doing for their kids when they walk in the room? Is there some music playing? Is there just a handshake and eye contact raises dopamine levels in the brain? Dr. Rady mentioned dopamine reward center. So just that contact is important for kids. So there's things we can do with physical activity to also enhance the emotional climate of the room. Because emotional environment stimulates intellectual achievement. We want a safe place to learn. We want a place where I'm free to take a risk, an educational risk, because most kids won't. And we want a place where it's just safe to be wrong. Because being wrong is great. It gives us free information about what not to do next time. But we don't look at it that way as a culture. The kids don't look at it that way. They don't want to be wrong in public. So that's the environment we're after. So I'm going to show you one activity, a way that we can possibly do that. in the classroom, and I'm going to need some volunteers. This will be the most fun thing to do all day, I promise. I'll take 10 or 12 of you will be great. Go, yes, come on down. Just start walking. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I want you to get into a circle. I know it's January, and hopefully you can go wash your hands in a bit, but I'm going to ask you to take hands. Okay? All right. Here's the deal. I want you to keep this balloon in the air without letting go of hands and letting it touch the floor. Okay, so you can use your nose, chin, ears, elbows, knees, feet, whatever. You can use clasped hands, that's fine. Just don't let go of your hands and don't let the balloon touch. Go. And here is balloon number 2.
Oh dear. All right. Good.
Oh, you're doing great. Let's see. Here comes balloon number 3.
Okay. All right.
30 seconds. 15.
Okay. Right. Blue.
10.
Oh, purple. It's okay.
5. All right, let's give them a nice round. So from that activity, what are some of the benefits as far as class cohesion or team building from an activity like that? What are we doing? Partnership. Absolutely. Communicating. Yep. Lots of things that we can roll over into another lesson. Okay, but what else? Yes?
Particularly about that, I like that you didn't preface it with anything, we figured out our own.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah. And you, as the professional, if you are a teacher, all of you tonight, as the pros in your classroom, get to make decisions about how, why, when, and you can see things that you can adapt. Okay, so good point. Yes?
Or let others go.
Yeah.
Take turns.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. It takes a team. It's not my turn, right? Stay in your lane, bro. Sharing. Yes, absolutely. Sharing. Okay, yeah. Focus. All have the same goal, right? Sometimes that takes a team. Trust. There's so many things here. Yeah, yes.
Have fun.
Having fun, it's basic human need in Glasser's list. He doesn't say, hey, let's have fun, have a party. He just says, when we learn, fun is the natural human payoff for learning. It's important. Yes? Group fear. And we have to help each other out, right?
What happened if it hit the floor? Did you make them run laps?
Yeah, that's push-ups right here. Yeah, maybe we should do that blindfolded, like Bird Box, right? But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like when somebody goes up for kicking, we'll say, oh, I'm sorry, it's okay.
Yeah. That's right, forgiveness. Yes. Problem solving. The list goes on and on. Did your heart rates go up?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's also helping our frontal lobe, helping our brain cells grow.
It also engaged the rest of us sitting.
Yeah.
Watching.
Yeah, it was engaging to watch. It didn't last very long, and it was fun to watch to see if they do it or not. The other thing is a non-threatening touch. Right? We don't touch enough. We can't. I get it. Public school, private school, whatever, we can't touch. But this is a way to achieve that. This touch is important to each other as humans. And it meets another need. Another reason to use physical activity in the classroom is that the brain has a requirement for social interaction. The brain, people may, at different levels, some people want to be the center of attention, right? They love the group, they're very social, and other people are like, you know what, hang on. I need to get my energy back from you guys by staying over here for a few minutes by myself. All kinds of different levels, but we all need it. We all need social interaction, and physical activity can help meet that. Okay, good. Yes?
You also need the recognition from the group that you've done well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Recognition from the group. And there's people that may not work together normally that might have to work together. A couple more reasons before I get into the next way to use physical activity in the classroom. Let me go back to a couple of reasons why it's so critical. From the brain's perspective, the brain loves novelty. Now, there's lots of ways to create novelty in the classroom. This is just one of them, but it's an effective tool. So the brain loves novelty. So if I'm just talking to you about movement and physical activity and about the brain and about novelty, and all of a sudden, sorry, I do that, you noticed, right? So your brain is pre-programmed to notice differences. That's the principle behind novelty. Pre-programmed to notice differences. And kids need it. They need that, and movement itself is novel. And what about this? Let's try this. This is another reason it's so critical. So if you watched me, did you have to say, hey brain, he's on the move, watch him? No, did you just watch me? Yeah. Your brain is pre-programmed to notice the movement of people and objects and its environment, and it learns from that. And it's pre-programmed to learn through this. This is one of the best natural teachers that we have, is our body. We learn a lot of information through our body. So, novelty, movement, social interaction, all reasons to use physical activity in the classroom. Okay, let me just keep my eye on time. Yeah, I got to keep moving here. Okay. 45 minutes. I'll talk briefly. Another part of our framework is physical fitness, supporting fitness and exercise. And you've heard from like one of the world's experts on that topic. And Paul is also, you're going to hear more about that. So I'm not going to dive into that very deeply, except to say two things. We, in our framework, have activities for teachers to use in the classroom that are 3 to 5 minute fitness-based activities. Okay, it does several things. It gets their heart pumping. We're helping their brain cells. It gets their, motivation going. And the other thing that it does is it serves as a role model for kids. For a teacher to show and say that your fitness life is critical. It's not even important, it's critical to your academic life. We know that now, right? Your fitness life is critical to your academic life, and you can be that role model in the classroom. And I do just want to hop on to what John said, what Paul's going to say, is that the physical educator, are there any in here? The physical educator to me, everybody's important. I was not a physical education teacher, but I'm still willing to say the physical education teacher to me is the most important person in the building. Because what the research tells us is that it sets everyone up for academic success. We know that. We know that. And so fitness and exercise is so critical and so important. So I'm going to get away from that pretty quickly because you're getting bigger doses of that than what I can provide right now. So we can review content using physical activity. So far we can provide brain breaks, we can prepare the brain, we can create class community, we can support exercise and fitness, and we can also review content. And I'm going to ask you to do that with me right now. Find my cards. Okay. Would you please all, this is really low movement, no big deal, no partners, would you stand at your seats? We're going to do a content review activity. So I'm going to ask you some multiple choice questions, and they're just fun questions. I got some history, some geography, some government, movie, TV, whatever. I'm going to ask you some multiple choice questions, just simple recall, not very high up Bloom's taxonomy. And I'm going to ask you to answer me physically. So if the answer is A, I want you to walk in place. Let's do that together. Very good. If the answer is B, I want you to touch the opposite knee. Good. If the answer is C, I just want you to wave your arms like an upper body jumping jack. Very good. And I usually have another one that I would have taught you by now, so I got to think of one real quick. Let's do this. If the answer is D, I want you to pick a favorite heel and touch it, just like this. Okay? Now we just need something physical. So, A, walk. B, touch opposite knee. C, upper body jumping jack. And D, touch a heel. Okay? Good. Don't answer until I go through all 4 possible answers, because I want you to hear them all first, and then I'll ask. All right, here we go. Let's start with one. Here we go. Which one of these individuals was not a U.S. president? Was it A, George Washington? That's not right. B, Warren Harding. C, Alexander Hamilton. Or D, Benjamin Harrison. Go. And the answer is correct. That's right. C. Alexander Hamilton. Very good. No one knew that like 7 years ago. Right? Now he's regained his fame. And yeah, he had an affair and never made it to the presidency. So, all right. In what is considered the worst trade in the history of sports? Babe Ruth was traded to the New York Yankees from what team? Was it A, the Brooklyn Dodgers, B, the Philadelphia A's, C, the Chicago White Sox, or D, the Boston Red Sox? Go. It is D, Boston Red Sox. Yeah. Curse of the Bambino. All right, let's do an easy one. Then we'll do one more. It's going to do 2 more. Who portrayed the Terminator? A, Bruce Willis. B, Arnold Schwarzenegger. C, Jim Brown. Or D, Sylvester Stallone. Go. That is correct. Arnold. Let's see. That's a hard one. That's an easy one. All right, I'll give you a middle of the road one. Process of elimination here. In which sport does the bowler deliver the ball to the batsman? In which sport does the bowler deliver the ball to the batsman? Is it A, cricket, B, polo, C, rugby, or D, baseball? Go. Answer is A. You are correct. It's cricket. All right, thank you. So what are the advantages of an activity like this, a review activity like this in the classroom? What do you think? Lots of them.
By the way, I want to throw one quick thing. In the beginning, when you did your jumps, like when you were jumping around,
okay,
you used to use that for math. So give me a 25% jump was a quarter jump.
Oh, that's great.
50% jump, yeah, a half jump.
That's perfect.
The little kids get almost to 100, but we use it for decimals, fractions, percents.
Yes. And you know what else that's good for? If I just do this,
Yeah.
the 360-degree spin, or if I do 90 or 180, I am developing that vestibular as well. So it means dual knee. Good, thank you. Who had it? Go ahead.
I was going to say it probably helps coordinate with memory.
Yeah.
Because you have something to relate to.
And I have had teachers say, oh yeah, I had a kid at his desk going like this, you know, because he remembered that specific answer. Yeah, that's one reason. What else? Anything else? Because I'll tell you. Okay, so we got lots of them. Number 1, you don't need a brain break because you're doing something academic. Okay, that's great. Number 2 or 3 or wherever we're at, it is safe. I saw some of you go like this. Oh yeah. It's safe. Okay. How many times does review consist of the same 4 kids that raised their hand? Who was the first president of the United States? Same 4 hands go up. And the rest of it, you say Johnny, and Johnny answers it, and everyone else says, whew, glad she didn't call on me. And you shut down the retrieval process because kids learn and retrieve at different rates. Okay. Another thing is, how often do you get an opportunity as a teacher to see kind of what your class knows that you might have to go back over versus going through paperwork or being on a computer? I can see right now that if you come back in here tomorrow, I need to go over who Babe Ruth was traded from. I can see that immediately. So there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons to use content review in the form of physical activity in the classroom. The final way, I've got a little bit of time left to talk you through some things, which is great. Final way to use physical activity in the classroom is to teach content, just what you were talking about. And I'd like a few more volunteers if I could. This is like low motion. You're not going to be doing hardly anything. Just standing in a circle, no hands held and no balloons, I promise. It's going to teach you a quick concept. So any volunteers just to come up? I need like 6 of you. Just stand in a circle. Okay, if you want to start to get into a circle. Alright. Now, if I can have you just hang on out here. Try to get into I need you. Get into a really great circle. No eggs, no ovals, just a nice circle. Here we go. Come over here. And I want you to step around the circle and have your chest go heels up. So 1, 2, right around the circle. I'm on the spot where you start. Okay? Go ahead. I should have picked a size 11. I got you right there. What's your number? 23. Stay there. Now as you open up the circle, and now turn towards me. You turn towards me. That's your name. Go back to where you were, and just stay there and turn towards me. Like whole body, and then your feet too. Okay, now I want you to walk a straight line doing the same thing, kind of steps, heel toe. Yes. So about 7, 7.5. And what was our first number? 23. And what did we just do kinesthetically?
Circumference and radius.
Yeah, we did circumference and diameter, and we could do radius. Absolutely. So here's the bottom line. Could a kid go home that night and teach this in his kitchen? More likely than hearing it from you, looking at it in a book, looking at a PowerPoint, doing a worksheet. It's not that we shouldn't reinforce this with all those things, but this is the most brain-friendly way to achieve this. The brain likes this. There's a lot of things in play here. Thank you very much. You can have a seat. I'm going to talk about 2 things. I appreciate you doing that. So the first thing going on here is implicit learning. Raise your hand if you remember the first 10 presidents of the United States. I always have 1 or 2. Anybody? Kind of? Okay.
Not properly.
Raise your hand if you can change a light bulb. One of the reasons you can't remember the first 10 presidents, because I would argue that learning 10 names is not that much more difficult than changing a light bulb. One of the reasons that you can't remember those 10 names is because you learned them explicitly, through discussion, through reading, through rote memorization. I'm not against any of those things. They're all critical to our brain in how we get things from working memory to long-term memory. But it's not efficient from the brain's perspective. So you forgot. The other reason you don't remember is because who cares? It's not important to my survival, so I'm just going to forget it. I can Google it. No biggie. What about this, though? I saw someone do it one time. I tried it myself once or twice, and I had it for life. That's power. I am much more likely to remember circumference and diameter this way versus other types of learning, not for everybody, but for a majority of the kids. Okay, and I ask you to do things because they are more efficient from the brain's perspective. Okay, you don't always have time to do this, but in the end, it becomes more efficient. Another thing that's going on here is that your brain is episodic memory. Your brain is always creating a learning address for where you learn something. Raise your hand. I know the answer. I shouldn't even ask you to raise your hand. But do you remember where you were when you first heard about 9/11? Of course. The reason you have it cemented in your brain forever is the emotional memory lane handled by your amygdala. But the reason that you can remember where you were is your semantic memory lane. And that is handled by the hippocampus, which Dr. Rady mentioned. And so our brain is always creating that learning address for where you learn something. So if I was going to test you on everything we've done tonight, tomorrow, where would I have you sit? There's a cognitive advantage in the same seat. Not that we don't want kids to transfer information anywhere, anytime. We do. But there is a cognitive advantage to episodic memory. Okay. They were clapping hands. I still got 5 minutes. I want all the time I can get. Let me do two more benefits. Two more benefits, and then we'll be done. I think this is probably, these two are the most critical. And by the way, a third is it differentiates instruction. Right, you can differentiate through readiness, through interest, through learning profile. This falls under learning profile and differentiates instruction. So, there are two criteria for learning things: normal content, everyday content, in the long term. One is, does it make sense? And the second one is, does it have meaning? Which one do you think is more powerful? It's meaning. Yeah. Does it make sense is important, but does it have meaning is even more critical. So those are the two criteria. Your job as a teacher is long-term memory. Hands down. Whether it's SEL or it's learning content or it's something social, we want them to remember it again so they'll use it again. Make sense? So your job is long-term memory, and the more you know about it, the more effective you can be. So, how does this relate to physical activity? So you know how important meaning making is. I need to find personal meaning, personal relevancy to store this in the long term, to have the best chance to store this in the long term. If this is my world in a school, it's much more difficult to find meaning. Here's why. I want to ask you tonight to be state managers. What is state management? It's the management of the brain, body, emotional states of your learners, because it matters to the content. How they feel during content acquisition matters. So if I'm like this, and the whole class is looking similar to this, I implore you to stop what you're doing, have them stand up, do a quick brain break, sit them back down, get them refocused, and then hit them with the content. And here's why. Meaning making is state dependent. So the whole crux of your job is long-term memory. The key point, the key part of long-term memory is meaning making. And I'm telling you that meaning making is state dependent. So it matters how I feel during content acquisition. And that just may be the very best thing, the most important thing about using physical activity. Because physical activity is the best state manager you have at your disposal. You know what a close second is? Music. What if I said to you, theme from Rocky? Right, that's what I get. I didn't have to play the music, I just even had to say it. And I can get you thinking about some of you were thinking about running up the steps. I know, just a minute. But so music is a very close second, but we need to manage the states of kids so that they can be really good meaning makers in the classroom. And finally, probably the biggest byproduct for me of using physical activity in the classroom is student motivation. Were you more motivated tonight when you were listening to me or when you were moving? Well, I thank you, but I know what the answer is. It's moving, and your kids will feel the same way. We could get into basic human needs. I don't have a lot of time for that tonight. You know, we're talking about fun and belonging and freedom and power and survival. Physical activity in the classroom meets all those. It's better than behavior mind, and we meet them here first. So, folks, I hope that you have a better idea of how to use physical activity in the classroom, why it's effective. and I hope that you'll learn more about how to